Welcome back to the Best of the Rest podcast with Sticks and Freezer. You've joined us for the Bahrain race review. How are you, Freezer?
Not too bad, Sticks. How are you, Cobber?
Yeah, good, mate. Good.
Fantastic.
So you want to run us through the qualifying for the Bahrain race, mate?
Yeah, so I've got the quality results up here, so let's run through them quickly, 20 to 1, just as a bit of a quick recap. So 20, we had Gasly, 19, Ocon, 18th, Sargent, 17th, Zhou, 16, Bottas, 15, Magnussen, 14, Ricciardo, 13, Albon, 12, Stroll, 11, Tsunoda. Top 10 is Hülkenberg, 9, Hamilton, 8, Piastri, 7, Norris, 6, Alonso, 5 is Perez, 4th is Sainz, and the podium, 3, Russell, 2, Leclerc, and 1, Max Verstappen.
Well, not a whole lot overly surprising there, apart from maybe the Alpines at the back and Lewis Hamilton, maybe.
Yeah, Hamilton's slightly low. Hülkenberg sneaking into the top 10 there.
Not a
little honourable mention for Haas, I guess.
But yeah, overall pretty
Still pretty stock
expected.
Standard from last season. There's no major improvements or dramatic changes. I guess the only two notable ones is Ocon and Gasly, 19th and 20th respectively. Yeah, bit surprising, but also I think Gasly started exactly the same last year in that quali position. Made up a few places, but I think the way they were talking, that's around about what they were kind of expecting. Probably not quite that low, but bottom half for sure.
I guess realistically it takes a good 4 or 5 races before you see where teams really are at.
Yeah.
A few different tracks and bits and pieces to have a look at, but
yeah. Still struggling to get to know the car. Upgrades they've put on, they've only had 3 days of testing. You've got your sim sessions, but how well does that really relate to the track? I guess you don't really know unless you are a driver. Not too much really to report on the quali for Bahrain. All right, and we're back for Sector 2 of the pod. And Sticks, this will be a bit of a run through the points finishes of the race.
Righto. Hit me with 10th place then.
Big 10th place, we got Lance Stroll. Should we keep going?
Yeah, run through the top 10. We'll have a bit of a
quick through and then recap. 9th, we got Fernando Alonso. 8th, Oscar Piastri. 7th, Lewis Hamilton. 6th, Lando Norris. 5th, George Russell. 4th, Charles Leclerc. 3rd, Carlos Sainz. 2nd, Sergio Perez. And 1st, Max Verstappen with a big 26 points because of the fastest lap as well.
Surprise, surprise.
Who would have guessed?
Honestly, I do have to give Stroll some credit. To finish 10th after what happened in that first corner is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so first corner got tagged by Hülkenberg. Spun him round immediately into last position. Old Hulk did have to go into pits and get a new front wing, which then put him into 20th.
I'm guessing that Stroll, he mustn't have pitted as much as everyone else. He probably did double hard. I haven't actually looked at what he did, but just sort of noticed that he snuck up into that top 10 by the end of the race. So pretty good going overall.
Wasn't real familiar with his pits because there was people pitting all over the place. Some doing soft, hard, soft. I think, no, there wasn't too much variety. I think a lot of people did do 2 stops. I don't think there was any ones. So I think everyone did do the kind of adequate amount compared to everyone else. Hülkenberg with his front wing damage went immediately into pits straight from soft to hards and put a big stint in and then finished with another set of hards. A few people went kind of. I think everyone started on soft. So
Perez had a pretty good race. Probably did what he had to do, put it up on the second position. But
yeah,
he still had to fight through a bit of traffic at the start. But that Red Bull looks pretty ferocious overall. But Verstappen, I don't think he was trying after probably the halfway point of the race.
No, it seemed like he built up a nice kind of a 15-second gap, started cruising.
Doing his thing.
Yeah.
Simply lovely.
Simply lovely.
He's, I think he's going to be in for another season of Verstappen dominance, but second place in Constructors is going to be spicy.
Yeah, I think the fight will be on. There's a bit of a inter-team kind of a fight there for a little bit with Sainz and Leclerc.
Which would have been interesting if Leclerc didn't have whatever was going on with those brake issues.
Yeah.
Which did seem to affect Sainz a couple of times, but it was Leclerc that was struggling with whatever was going on. It was probably half a dozen lockups in the first dozen laps probably.
Yeah.
Which is, pretty full on and not like Leclerc. He's world-class driver.
Getting on the radio saying that the car's just about undrivable and dangerous and all the rest. They seem to get on top of it after kind of 20 or so laps, but...
Typical Formula One driver on the radio, though.
Yeah.
Pretty dramatic, aren't they?
Yeah, you wouldn't hear it otherwise.
But yeah, that and the only other big issue in terms of car reliability is Mercedes and whatever's going on with their power unit.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear more about that. And obviously that affected Albon and the Williams as well.
Well,
wouldn't affect Sargent because he just spent a minute sitting off the track after he outbroke himself on bloody lap 10.
Sargent doing Sargent things.
Got a yellow flag out just because he outbroke himself and sat off the track for a minute and a half or whatever it was, and then continues on.
Then tries to blame the car afterwards. Weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting to see, though, because Russell sort of hung onto the back of Verstappen for a little while there until it seemed like he got those overheating warnings on the dash and had to manage that for the rest of the race. So I don't know whether they had the genuine pace where he could have maybe had a podium today, but I don't know. He said after the race that he did think a podium was on the cards, but is that purely because of the heating issues, overheating issues? I don't know.
Yeah, hard one to say, I guess.
Well, Lewis didn't really... He had some decent pace at the end of the race, but nothing that was going to challenge...
The only thing I heard from Lewis was that his seat broke or something, halfway through the race, but then that never really eventuated anywhere, so...
So did it actually break, or is it, again, just Formula One drivers being dramatic? I guess you do have the right to be dramatic when you're doing 350 k's an hour. Your adrenaline's pumping a little bit. Any little thing's going to feel like it's quite a significant error.
Yeah.
This going, that going, rah.
I guess with the amount of G's and obviously, like you said, the speed that you're doing, if something does go wrong, it can be pretty drastic consequences.
You see people on the road normally doing 100 k's down the highway and people are road raging and going off about someone cutting them off and people just turn into a beast behind the wheel. And that's at regular speed limits. So you can imagine on the racetrack.
White line fever.
Yuki Tsunoda.
Yes, Yuki Tsunoda. So there's a little period there towards the end where Ricciardo had been put onto the softs. He'd caught up to the back of Tsunoda's gearbox and they had instructed the drivers to swap positions. This obviously caused a bit of a disgruntled Tsunoda team radio.
Yeah, Yuki wasn't stoked about that and didn't really seem to abide by the team message for what a good 2 laps or so. I don't know, the coverage didn't actually show the overtake itself, but let him through and then he's mouthing off on the radio, which... on the coverage seemed to be, that was sort of that end of the race. Not too much more to it. But it seemed like on the cool down lap he almost tried to take Ricciardo out. Yeah,
so I was going to touch on that briefly. I showed you a video just before we started the pod. It showed Ricciardo and Tsunoda on their cool down lap. I'm terrible with corners, so I don't know what corner it was. Right-hander, Ricciardo's coming down, Tsunoda dive bombs him on the right-hand side to cut the corner, locks up, goes off the track to the left. Ricciardo comes through, and Tsunoda then proceeds to overtake him again on the outside on the left. What? This is a cool-down lap. What is this about? Seems like he was almost trying to take him out. What are your thoughts on this, Sticks?
I think Daniel Ricciardo probably summed it up with immaturity, but that's a nice way of putting it. Like, that's fucking ridiculous, honestly. Like, what is he doing? Like, that's just, as his overall reputation as a professional, like that sort of stuff is not going to get you into a potential Red Bull seat that could be opened at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like, he could be a gun on the track, but that sort of volatility is what Red Bull don't want to mess around with.
Yeah.
Dan Ticktum, for example, lost his bloody driver Red Bull contract because of dumb shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what the fuck he's thinking. Supposedly has his anger under control, but like, that's just off the charts. Not even racing for points. It's not like he had to give 10th up and Daniel got a point. Like, it was just team orders.
Yeah. And I know, he probably was getting close to the back of Magnussen, and maybe he could have got an overtake going there, but if maybe the drivers swapped earlier and they could have tried to make the most of Ricciardo's soft tyres, he could have been able to pass Magnussen, maybe even Zhou Guanyu, and Tsunoda still would have had a shot at potentially passing Magnussen because they had that bit of a stalemate there for a while, a couple of laps. They're wearing each other down, wearing the tyres down.
Well, Ricciardo could have towed Yuki along until he got past Magnussen, and Yuki probably would have been in a similar position that he was, just with holding Ricciardo up. So, yeah, as a team, you're not really going to get anywhere with that sort of attitude going on, especially when, you're not sitting in a points position giving that up. It's just team orders. And so, you think theoretically a Red Bull type seat, they're not going to cop that sort of thing if Yuki won't play ball and, help Max out if need be, or vice versa. So that sort of thing is just ridiculous. And
Christian Horner's already pretty openly said that there's potential for a seat being available in 2025, and for obvious reasons, it's not Max Verstappen's seat. So, and it's no secret that Max is the number one driver. So they're going to be playing second fiddle, and if they're asked to swap positions, they're going to have to swap positions.
Well, you look at how Danny handled that situation, and even in the media afterward, obviously he's well spoken, and he's definitely one of the better media personalities. But like, he puts the team first, and that's what you're going to get that with him. He's a good racer, and he's not going to compromise the team. But Yuki, on the other hand, he's a fireball. You just...
little pocket rocket.
Yeah, firecracker is probably the right term for it. And he's promoting that, it's not an issue anymore. But, obviously it's...
still something.
Got that shit under control.
Something fizzing away in the background.
And, I don't know. I don't like it, personally.
No.
It's too far.
Great to have a bit of aggression and whatever, but, that's too far.
Like, it's one thing to have a crack on the track. Like, if it's the last couple of laps and clearly Ricciardo's not going to get Magnussen, and Magnussen's not even in a points position anyway, so have a crack on the track. Yeah. But, like, after's just...
in a cool-down lap.
Immature.
Imagine if he swapped both cars out.
Yeah, exactly right.
I'm sure he wouldn't have a seat at Jeddah if he did that.
Well, the way he acted, he could have easily lost the car, put it into both of them. Before you know it, hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage because you've damaged two cars in one stupid incident that's after a race. Like, that would, you would lose your seat real quick doing dumb shit like that.
Yeah.
But, Yuki, wild card.
Yuki, what are you doing, mate?
You don't know what you're going to get.
What are you doing? So the only other things, jumping back to Ferrari real quick. Yeah. So Leclerc... obviously qualified second, finished fourth. I actually don't think that's too bad of a result from Leclerc considering what he was battling with his brakes. The only weird thing that I saw from Ferrari was just leaving them to battle when Sainz was trying to overtake Leclerc, And that first overtake was a real kind of a dive bomb. Leclerc did not want to give him any room. And that was close to a crash. But then they bring him into the pits.
Leclerc with the undercut.
Yeah, and they know that that's powerful on this track. So then Sainz is left and comes out of pits behind Leclerc again. So then all his hard work, even though they're teammates, he's now got to pass Leclerc again, which he did, and then had to run down the track and chase down Russell.
Well, yeah, not only holds Sainz up a little bit, but, if they're both going to battle hard, potentially puts them in a position where they could take each other out.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that Leclerc has that brake issue and he's not at 100%. So it's not really like he's battling for that position out of just pure pace. Like he's sort of limping that car to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Weird decision, but a typical Ferrari, they don't seem to do the most logical thing, and it often bites them in the arse.
Yeah.
Like knowing that undercut was powerful, if you had brought Sainz in for the undercut, that would have propelled him up the road a little bit further, and he would have been, behind Russell at the time a lot sooner.
Yep.
So,
and he only finished a couple of seconds behind Perez. I think it's 2.5, 3 seconds behind Perez. So
theoretically, could have been enough that they could have had a battle at some point and potentially put him on the second step.
Yeah, because both Red Bulls were on soft tyres, and Sainz actually got on the radio with 10, 12 laps remaining, and asked when they were expecting the hard tyres to become quicker than the softs. And it was at that point that he radioed that they said about this lap, next lap. So if that was, if he was a couple more seconds down the track and just about on Perez's gearbox, he could have been sitting in second.
Weird decision. Not the worst decision you've seen from Ferrari, but not the best way to start the year off.
Not sure if it's a driver preference or if they just didn't think, if they thought he would have been quicker out on the track. Other way around. If they didn't think Leclerc was going to be as quick out on the track and Sainz was going to come out before him.
They could also be looking and trying to stop Charles from being undercut from behind as well, but they often do that as well, where they try and look after the car that's behind by giving them the priority with the undercut, which then affects the car that's actually in front, and then they just sort of end up tripping over themselves as a team.
Yeah, but then they battle again. It's not like, we did that to protect you, now swap back.
Yeah, it just doesn't...
Then it ended up another tight overtake. So it was lap 11, the Sainz passed Leclerc in their first tight overtake. Lap 15, Sainz pitted second, and he ended up behind Leclerc. And then lap 17, Sainz had to dive bomb Leclerc again to overtake. And then a lap later on 18, Sainz gets an easy pass on Russell into third. So all that, nearly could have been a couple laps prior.
Yeah, which could have given him a little bit more to go up Perez at the end of the race, potentially. A little bit further down the road, but who knows. Just thinking, Verstappen last year, how much did he won the race last year at Bahrain? I can't remember what the margin was.
I'm not sure.
Because I'm just thinking, is there a chance that someone other than a Red Bull driver can win a race this year if Verstappen cruised to a very comfortable win over his teammate?
Yeah, well...
Or are there going to be potential tracks like another Singapore this year that doesn't seem to suit the Red Bull as well, that, someone might be able to jump up and grab a race victory, but I don't know.
So I've just pulled up last year's result. Verstappen won by 11.9, so 12 seconds over Perez, and Alonso plus 38 from race leader.
Yeah, okay.
So
pretty similar to the results that we had today, which is not necessarily a great thing for the championship this year after one race. But then, it's one race, but you want to try and keep the season alive, but you're pretty much expecting it to be a Red Bull 1-2.
Yeah.
But on a positive note, you've got Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, all sort of there battling. Aston seem to be off the pace.
Yeah.
Whether they can sort of jump onto the back of that pack, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a bad race weekend. I know Alonso was complaining a bit earlier on about only having 3 days for testing. There's not enough time.
The last thing that stood out to me for this race, we sort of briefly touched on it before, but what is going on with Sargent? Like, what was that?
Oh, don't know. They didn't really show anything. Just he's off the track. I thought there must have been some kind of power failure or problem.
That's what it looked like when they panned to him.
And he was just sitting there
land.
swearing, going, fuck. And then he just sat there, yellow flag comes out. You think, oh, here we go. He's going to have to retire the car. Next thing you know, he's turning around.
Off he goes. It's almost like he sat there trying to pluck reverse but couldn't get it. But why? It didn't, I don't know, it didn't make any sense.
No, there's no real comment on it. Like, yeah, he outbraked himself, missed the corner, but wouldn't you, even if you are going down that little escape road, you run down and then just, whip it in and try and get back on track.
ASAP.
So I don't know what happened there.
It's almost like that lockup was enough for him to go, oh, fuck me, like my race is fucked now.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on, but
no one really spoke about it. So it was weird.
And it was almost like the coverage sort of touched on it and then they just swept it under the rug and kept going.
Yep.
It does seem like Sargent's a bit of a protected species at this point.
It's seeming weird. Yeah, I don't know what's going down in that Williams camp, but
I mean, too many performances like that, and yeah, he's not going to keep that seat for the whole season.
I didn't think he was going to keep it this season coming. The season that we're in now.
Yeah, current.
Yep. And yeah, if it continues like this, he's not going to have a seat next year.
It's a weird one. And then the comments at the end of the race to sort of blame it on, we had the same issue in qualifying and we need to get onto the bottom of that. But it didn't seem to be a car issue. It's just like he outbraked himself and then, unless it was like he outbraked himself and then the car somewhat stalled off the track, or maybe that's the issue that he's talking about. But it did seem like he genuinely outbraked himself. You didn't hear Albon talking about anything to do with car reliability. There was talk of engine overheating. Yeah. Same as Mercedes, but nothing like Sargent was going on about. So I don't know what is going on.
I don't know. And I watched full quali. I didn't really see anything that looked sus, so I'm not even too sure what he's talking about. And he dropped the car in bloody testing, so...
Just seems to be full of excuses,
yeah.
I think.
I don't know. Don't know what's going on.
It seems like
Sargent.
Maybe he's just got a bit of money backing him that's keeping him in that seat, like old mate at Aston Martin, old Stroll. Yeah. Maybe there's a little bit of that going on.
Old Strolly boy. Speaking of not knowing what was going on, the bloody hell was going on with old Wilnut. Bottas. 52.4 stop time of Valtteri Bottas.
That was a weird one.
Was it the left front or left rear wheel nut or something like that? Just
weird.
He was just sitting there, just waiting.
But like you heard Crofty on the broadcast say that those wheel nuts are a part of the actual wheel themselves.
Yeah, so and at one stage the gunner just had a wheel nut in his hand.
And then they threw him a backup one, so I don't know what was going on with that.
Threaded it on by hand and then did the rest up with the gun.
So I don't know if you can somehow cross-thread that, and that's what he did.
I don't know.
And just destroy the original one.
But then when they pulled the wheel off, they ran around the other side of the car with the wheel. So then what happened? Then they cut away for a bit and then came back and they were putting a new one on. But was it a whole new wheel?
I reckon they must have run to another set and got the front left because they're all marked.
Yeah.
Front left, front right, rear right.
Then
rear
that
left.
wrecks the next set. Unless they fix the wheel nut, I guess.
Don't know. But I mean, a 53-second stop's pretty mental.
Yeah.
If that happened to anyone other than Bottas that was sitting in like the back five, like it would have been a bigger story. Would have destroyed him in this race.
And he still finishes ahead of Sargent.
It's pretty embarrassing.
52.4 stop time in pits, and still finishes ahead of Sargent, who outbroke himself in the corner.
Like an 8-second stop is very, very slow.
Yeah.
So you could say, like, it was 45 seconds slower than a genuine, very slow stop, and Sargent still finishes behind him.
Just crazy.
Rightio. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the second sector.
Sector 2, done and dusted.
We'll have a quick break and jump in with some final thoughts.
Welcome back to Sector 3, the Best of the Rest pod. Sticks, getting into
Yes, mate.
best moments or personal highlights. What do you take from the race today?
Well, overall, the race was pretty tame. So, personally, the highlight was at the end, a bit of Yuki and Ricardo, a bit of beef going on, spice things up a little.
Bit of dive bomb in the cool down.
That was, well, even before that, it was a bit spicy on the radio and, a bit of lip back and forth. Don't mind that.
Yep.
But a bit of carry on after the race, probably not as much of a highlight. Probably went across the line so a little bit, but What about you, mate? What was a big takeaway?
She was a pretty tame race. The only yellow flag was Sargent outbreaking himself. I've said it once, I'll say it again. The fuck are you doing? Mate, what are you doing? But yeah, best moments. Zhou Guanyu gets a honourable mention. Qualied for 17th, I think it was, and finished in P11. So well done, Joe.
Just want to make a quick disclaimer. We're not a podcast that's about hating on drivers, but fuck Logan Sargent makes it hard.
Mate, what are you doing? I said I didn't want to be one of these people and just shit on someone, but
he just...
Logan, you are in my toilet bowl. It's a bit hard not to shit on you.
You can't not.
Get out of the toilet.
You can't not roast the bloke. Like, it's just fucking frustrating. Anyway, we won't dwell too much longer on Sargent, but...
No, well, I guess best moments... Valtteri Bottas's wheel nut. That was...
Big fan of that.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Loved it.
Look, there wasn't actually anything much best about the race, so this is more of a sarcastic take on things for me, I think, this week.
Yeah, well, if you can pick the highlight out as a wheel nut, you probably had a bit of a mundane race going on. A wheel nut incident. And not Bottas's famous wheel nut incident where it was literally moulded to the car and took a day and a half to get off.
And a half, but he's not far behind with 52.4 seconds.
Not too far. Right, well, who was your personal driver of the day, Freezer?
Driver of the day, briefly mentioned before, honourable mention to Zhou Guanyu. But I don't think I can look past Sainz today. Just great fight. Had to pass his own teammate twice.
Impressive.
Yeah, no, just good race, clean racing. Yeah.
And pushing Perez towards the end too. He wasn't
pushing
just,
Perez, yeah.
Wasn't out in the middle of nowhere in third. He was, keeping
and
Perez
to be
honest.
the first race after all this drama of Hamilton leaving Mercedes and taking his seat at Ferrari. So
performed well.
Yeah, showing the other teams what he's capable of. So well done to Sainz. What about you, Sticks?
Don't have a whole lot more to add to that because I've got Sainz as well. A bit of a Sainz fan myself, but yeah, starting fourth, finishing third. That's pretty good. Couldn't ask for too much more.
Job done. When you got Red Bull that dominant, third's a first just about these days.
And I mean, you'll get people trying to discredit the race between Leclerc because of Leclerc's brake issues, but to be genuinely on the tail of Perez is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He, great performance overall. And hopefully we see a bit more of it from old Carlos.
Oh, Carlos.
So, one more category on the flip side of driver of the day. Who was your worst performance, or in a more positive light, who has room for improvement?
I think I'm going to hold my breath for a second here. You go first, Cobber. Lead us away, Sticks.
Look, it's a bit hard to go past him, isn't it?
Logan Sargent, what are you doing, mate? What are you doing?
We've already spoken enough about him, but yeah, Sargent's the one who's got a lot to think about before next week's race in Jeddah. Needs to pull his finger out a bit. But if there wasn't enough pressure going into round one, round two, he's just made things a lot harder for himself. So we'll see. A storyline to follow anyway.
Definitely.
Overall rating, I want to hear what you want to give Bahrain out of 5.
Look, it's tossing up between a 3. Then I was just going back through a few things and talking in this pod. I was leaning towards a 2. I think I'm just going to have to split the difference. I'm going a 2.5 out of 5. What do you got, Sticks?
It's not bad. I've just settled on a 2. Look, it was Formula 1. Been hanging out for it over the whole summer break. Winter, technically, in the Formula 1 world, but...
Yep, not in ours.
It was okay.
It was okay.
I'm looking
It was Formula 1. There's cars going around the track. There's a few overtakes. There's a few people absolutely hurting our heads. We're back. Hoping for a little bit more action in the coming weeks. But Jeddah's spicy. You can't make an error in Jeddah. You'll put it in the wall and that'll be that. So look forward to Sargent doing some damage. Speaking of Jeddah, give me your podium predictions for Jeddah. Oh, podium predictions. Well, I don't want to just follow exactly what happened last race, so I've gone a little bit different.
What have you gone as different as I have?
I'll start us off with third, Sergio Perez.
Okay, right.
Who have you got for third, Sticks?
I reckon Leclerc will fix his issues in the first race.
Yeah.
And he'll pick up third.
Third.
Yeah.
Who you got for
and
second?
Sticking with Perez and then Verstappen for another solid Red Bull 1-2.
Yeah.
Bit hard to go past them. I mean, it would be nice to have a little bit of a spicy prediction, but the head overrules.
Well, look, we're not too far off because I had Leclerc for second and Verstappen, obviously, for first.
Well, I'm going to throw out a bold prediction for you for the next race.
Okay.
I reckon Ricciardo will score some points.
Ooh, Ricciardo 10
Point
or
or
higher.
points.
What was that last bit?
Point or points.
Oh, plural.
Got any bold predictions that you'd like to just pluck out of midair, throw out there for next week's race?
You've really thrown me this one left of field. Didn't give me much time to prepare. I like it. It's how it should be. Don't know whether this is bold predictions or not, considering they just finished the last couple of places in the last race.
Thought you might have been going Fernando Alonso to not score a podium.
Yeah. I mean, if this was last season when he won just about every podium. For the first half. No, I was going towards Alpine not improving much this race. But I don't think that's really that bold. So I'm going to throw something else out there. I'm going to go... well, that would contradict myself, wouldn't it? So I can't do that. Norris for third would contradict my podium prediction, wouldn't it?
Somewhat. What about your boy Albon? Back him in.
Yeah, Albon will go 10th.
10th.
10th. He'll get a point.
our bold calls are both for 10th position. Probably not the boldest thing going around, but
Oh, you said multiple. You could have Ricardo 9th, Albon 10th.
yeah, I could see an RB. Especially Yuki's going to have to fire up his arse after.
You're right.
After
Careful of your mic there, mate. You might hurt yourself.
Sorry, mate. Professional setup here, of course. That'll be edited out the post show by the production team.
Yeah. Who's that? You. That's not going to happen.
But yeah, looking forward to next week's race. Hopefully, she's a little bit spicier than Bahrain, but good to see F1 back. Keen
to get into it.
Righto.
Well, that wraps up Sector 3 and the end of our Best of the Rest podcast.
Race review of Bahrain 2024.
Done and dusted.
Righto. Thanks for listening to the Best of the Rest pod.
Tune in next week for Jeddah. Leave us some reviews and
give us some feedback.
We'd love to read it.
Or not. We'll see how we're feeling.
Yeah. If it's less than a 5, I mean, I'm not reading it, but
only if you say nice things.
Yeah.
I wasn't get fucked.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Catch you later.
Cheers.
Oh, look at this. This is not a dog. This is a piece of shit.